ESPN dropped a brand new 7-round mock draft. So we're going to react to the mock draft, see what picks Matt Miller had the Atlanta Falcons making, and I'll give you my analysis and thoughts as we go through the mock draft. But if you want more Falcons mock draft content as we near an inch closer to the NFL draft, reminder to subscribe. That way you guys don't miss a thing when it comes to your favorite team for the biggest event in the entire NFL offseason. Now, let's remind everyone what picks Atlanta has to work with in this year's NFL draft. They've got their first, they've got a second, 2/3, one from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then some day 3 picks that no one cares about. So let's get into the fun stuff here. Picks 1 through 10 in Matt Miller's mock draft, with Atlanta picking 8. He had them going Dallas Turner, edge rusher out of Alabama. So Caleb Williams first, then Jaden Daniels. The Vikings trade up to number 3 to get Drake May. J.J. McCarthy goes to the Broncos, who also traded up. Marvin Harrison falls to the Chargers. Malik Neighbors is off the board. So the decision really for Atlanta is Dallas Turner or Rome Odunze. And they go defense. And I've said it before, and I'm going to keep saying it, baby. Dallas Turner is a Falcon. As long as he is still on the board when Atlanta is selecting, Dallas Turner, I believe, will be Raheem Morris's pick. It just makes too much sense in so many ways. They've gone offense for 3 straight years. They get a defensive-minded guy. They didn't address pass rush in the offseason. They will definitely be making that a priority in the draft. So they could go Rome Odunze, which I would not be opposed to, but I think we're going to see defense be the overall pursuit for Atlanta. Here's what Matt Miller wrote. The offensive side of the ball is set in Atlanta. Now it's time for Coach Raheem Morris to get a playmaker for the defense. Turner took over for Will Anderson Jr. at Alabama and notched 22.5 sacks and 29.5 tackles for loss in his career. Given that the Falcons finished 21st in sacks and 32nd in pass rush win rate last season, Turner's impact would be appreciated. The Falcons could go cornerback here, too, after grabbing just 8 interceptions last season as a team, but the value of a round 2 corner is much better than a round 2 pass rusher. And I agree with what Turner's saying here. This makes a lot of sense, like we talked about earlier, from a balancing of the offense and defensive standpoint in round 1. Plus, you just don't really find as many edge rushers in day 2 of the draft compared to corners you can find in day 2. Like, you can get some good wide receivers in corner in round 2 and round 3. Pass rushers, a lot more slim pickings. You can go look at some previous drafts, and we've shared it before on the channel. There's not a great lineup of round 2 edge rushers in the NFL. So some more background on Dallas Turner, though. 6'3", 247 pounds. He ran a 4.46 40-yard dash. Guys, he's 250 pounds, and he's running faster than wide receivers who are 20 pounds, 30 pounds lighter than him. This just level of athleticism is not something that's common in every single draft. So from a freak athletic standpoint, yes, he checks the box. Now, he wins with his speed and quickness. He's not going to dominate with a bull rush or strength. And listen, in the NFL, you have to find ways to win in a variety of ways. In college football, you might be able to get by bullying a Wake Forest left tackle. It's not going to work in the NFL. If you rely on just speed or just strength, you're likely going to have your game exposed, and the tackles that are much better prepared will know what to expect. But if you throw a variety of moves at them, which I think Turner could stand to add some more to his game, you could really be just an absolute menace. Now, Atlanta's front 5 right now, it needs outside linebacker help. Like Lorenzo Carter and Malone should not be 2 and 3 in your outside linebacker rotation. They just shouldn't. I am confident that they won't be going into the season. So the question becomes, do you want to address this need in free agency or the draft? I'm thinking Raheem Morris will want to get this done in the draft. Moving on to round 2 in Matt Miller's mock draft. With the 43rd overall pick, he had Atlanta going with cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama. So 2 Crimson Tide players coming to Atlanta. So this would be a best player available approach in my eyes. right? Is corner the biggest need for the Falcons? It might be up there depending on how they view Clark Phillips and whether or not they see long term potential with AJ Terrell. But for me, I don't think you're picking Kool-Aid McKinstry out of need. I think you're just surprised he's even available at pick 43 because some think he could be one of the top two corners in this draft. So I'd be a little surprised if he fell all the way to 43. Now, before we get on to the rest of this mock draft, really quickly, there is an awesome deal waiting for Falcons fans over at Prize Picks. Now, what is Prize Picks? It is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 6 players and then choose more or less on their projected stats. Now, in layman's terms, let's say you pick 4 players, okay? You choose the less on those stats or choose the more on those stats, and if you go 4 for 4, you could turn $10 into 5 times your money. So download Prize Picks today, and you can get started with some NFL futures. So if you want to have something like a Christmas present waiting for you a few months from now, I'm taking the more on anything related to Christian McCaffrey. I like the more on CJ Stroud to really take a big step forward in year 2 of his career. And then I figured, yeah, more on Patrick Mahomes always sounds like a pretty safe idea. So download Prize Picks today. Use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. If you want to get started today, I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. So let's get back to our mock draft. Here's what Matt Miller wrote about Kool-Aid McKinstry. The 2 biggest needs in Atlanta heading into the draft are pass rusher and cover corner. They got Dallas Turner in round 1, so now I have them targeting his Alabama teammate to take away receivers. McKinstry has a Jones fracture in his right foot, but he still ran a 4.47 second 40-yard dash at the Bama Pro Day and could be in play even earlier than this. So with that in mind, Kool-Aid, 5'11", 199 pounds. He's a very versatile player. He can play between man and zone. He was a 3-year starter at Alabama. He actually took over from Patrick Surtain, who, of course, was so dominant for Nick Saban. Now, the con I've got for Kool-Aid is not so much about the foot injury. For me, it's the inconsistency at tackling and his overall bad habit, I guess we'll call it, of face guarding defenders down the field and not turning his head back towards the football to make a play on it. And that usually results in some laundry on the field. You can look at his stats from last year. 0 interceptions, but 4 pass breakups. Picks come and go sometimes for corners, so I don't think that should be the only measuring stick you use for deciding whether or not a corner is good or not. It's a little simple-minded in my opinion. Now, when you look at Atlanta's cornerback room, yes, there is a potential need here. I say potential because if Morris comes in and likes what he's seen out of Clark Phillips and D. Alford, he may not feel like it's something they have to get with their second overall pick in the draft, right? Maybe this is something they wait till round 3 or something like that, and they go wide receiver at the standpoint. So big questions for Raheem Morris to answer in the secondary. Moving on to round number 3, they have 2 picks between 71 and 80. At 74, Matt Miller had them going defensive tackle Michael Hall out of Ohio State. And then at pick 79, he had them going linebacker Junior Colson out of Michigan. So I'm sure 2 teammates that will make excellent roommates during rookie minicamp. But this is the Raheem Morris effect. And I think Matt Miller might be going a little bit overboard here with the first 4 picks all being defense. But they did spend $180 million on a quarterback, $39 million on a wide receiver, and the last 3 first-round picks were tight end, wide receiver, and running back. So I wouldn't be shocked if Raheem Morris wants to tilt the scales back into the defense's favor. So when it comes to those 2 guys, we'll look at them in a second. But really quickly, can you interject and let me know how you would grade this mock draft with the most important picks, let's be honest, being done already, the first, second, third round picks in the books? You give it an A, B, C, D, or F. Dallas Turner I like to pick a lot, so I would say this is a B draft. I would have preferred a wide receiver at some point with your first 4 picks, and I'm not crazy about Michael Hall in round number 3. I think he could be better suited in day 3 of the draft. Lack of production issues for me, and So for that reason, I'll give it a B to B plus ish. Here's what Matt Miller had to say on Michael Hall, though. I wanted to find an earlier fit for Hall after witnessing his incredible pro day workout in Columbus, but things just fell this way. The Falcons could shape him under another undersized defensive tackle in Grady Jarrett. Now, when it comes to Atlanta's defensive line, they definitely could stand to add a little bit of weight in the trenches. Zach Harrison finished the year quite nicely last year. Is he ready to be a starter? We'll have to wait and see if they bring Campbell back or not. Grady Jarrett comes off a torn ACL, so he might need some help for the first month or so of the season. You brought back Kentavious Street, but I'm on board with always resupplying and reinforcing the trenches. Now, as for Junior Colson, here's what Miller had to say. Colson didn't work out at the Combine or his pro day, which could push him down the board. But the Falcons should be looking for rangy off-ball linebackers at the draft, and he's a plug-and-play starter. Huh? Where is he starting? Really? He's not taking Caden Ellis' spot. And he's not taking Nate Landman's spot. And if anyone was taking Nate Landman's spot, it would be Troy Anderson, the original starter. This one made me scratch my head. And it's not because I think Junior Colson's a bad player. I just don't think using your third-round pick on a backup inside linebacker is the best use of resources when you're in a win-now mode, right? So here's how the draft has shaken out so far in Matt Miller's mock. Dallas Turner, Kool-Aid McKinstry get to road trip together from Tuscaloosa to Atlanta. Michael Hall and Junior Colson come down from Big Ten country. I'm not in love with this mock draft. He addressed, some of the needs Atlanta has at edge rusher, defensive line, secondary, linebacker. I don't think was much of a need. I think he just wanted to. I think what happened was he didn't realize Junior Colson had gone so far in his mock draft being undrafted. He was like, oh crap. Well, he's a Falcon, but I still think that there should be a little bit more, influence on the offense in the first 4 picks of the draft than what we see out of this draft here. Because you look at Atlanta's projected offense, Kirk Cousins, Bijan, London, Mooney, Moore, and Pitts. Like, this is a good offense, but I don't think it's something that you should look at as set in stone, especially with Darnell Mooney and Rondale Moore. Like, these are your number 2 guys, or your 2 receivers competing for that number 2 spot behind Drake London. And while sure, I'm optimistic that Mooney's going to get back to his first 2-year form with the Bears, I think this is, it's the numbers. And the numbers tell me that neither one of these guys had over 500 yards last year, and just gifting them no competition via the draft in the wide receiver room could be putting yourself in a sticky situation if neither guy takes that big leap that, sure, we all might be optimistic happens, but that's kind of fortunately, the belly of the offseason. We're all optimistic that guys will take big leaps into next year. You should have a level of, insurance in place for some of those positions, like wide receiver. So would you prioritize wide receiver in this upcoming draft class? Yes or no? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section, whether or not you feel like wide receiver should be moving up the priority list or should be staying put or even moving down. I think this wide receiver class is so gifted, you got to capitalize on it, right? If all goes well for Atlanta, they're not going to be picking early in rounds 1 or 2 next year. Plus, there's the elephant in the room of they may have some picks being taken away from them because of allegations of tampering. So with a wide receiver class this good, I'd like to see them go wide receiver in round 2 if they don't do it in round 1. Now, as for their day 3 picks, we'll kind of lump them all together because I know that no one really gets super pumped for round 5 and 6 guys. But they went offensive line in round 4 out of Wisconsin. He's got a mullet. Everything checks out for me. Round 5, they finally go wide receiver. Bub Means out of Pitt. What? That's just an all-time name. Jordan Travis, now that's going to get some eyeballs. Quarterback from Florida State in round 6. And then Walter Rouse, another offensive lineman in round 6 as well. 2 offensive line picks for maybe their greatest unit is a little bit of a surprise to me. But here's what Matt Miller had to say on the Jordan Travis selection. Jordan Travis, QB, Florida State to the Falcons. Atlanta made a big splash in signing quarterback Kirk Cousins in free agency, but doesn't have a developing backup behind the 36-year-old. Travis is a gamer who battled through a shoulder injury early in the season before a broken leg ended his season. He's a touch thrower with good mobility, worthy of a late-round flyer. It never hurts to have a backup plan. I am fully behind drafting a quarterback almost every single year for all 32 teams. You can never have a good competition. You can never have too much competition for the backup QB job because we have seen so many teams' seasons go down the drain when the starter misses time and they don't have a good backup plan in place. So for Atlanta to take a quarterback here, I'm perfectly fine with. Jordan Travis as a prospect, I don't have high regards, honestly. I think he had a lot of great upside in college that's not going to translate well to the NFL. And I'm glad to see Atlanta's not using an early pick on a quarterback. I don't think they should go quarterback in the first 2 days of the draft whatsoever. You just signed Kirk Cousins to a contract that has guaranteed money in his years 1, 2, and 3 of that contract. Atlanta signed him, and Kirk Cousins signed him because the two mutually saw a long-term relationship here. If you want to start planning for life after Kirk Cousins, this is not the draft to do it. Maybe next year or the following year, but not a month and a half after you just signed him. But that's okay with Jordan Travis in day 3. I don't think you're going to see any red flags coming out of the signing from Kirk Cousins' camp. So who is the one person you want the Falcons to draft? Let me know in the comment section who that one guy is that you are standing on the table for. For me, Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze are there at 8. I just like them more as a prospect than Dallas Turner. I know the team needs and all, but Malik Neighbors, he's getting a lot of smoke right now. It'd be tough to pass on him or Odunze. All right, that will do it for us on this edition of Falcons Today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to sign off, and we'll see you all later.